prominently displayed in the video. You know there are futons for sitting on if you'd like an extra. Young people. Oh. I used to sit on the floor too. I used to run and jump, and I used to play racquetball. You know.
I used to too until I got a 3-year-old.
Till you got what?
Until I got a 3-year-old.
Oh yeah.
I went to a church in Peru and they had the women sit on the floor while the men sat in pews, and I'm like, well, why is that? And they're like, well, it's better for the women's bones to sit on the floor. Okay, sure. Maybe.
Better for the women's
bones, their joints.
Their bones. Oh.
Who said that?
This church in Peru.
Oh, Peru. You might be something to it,
I don't know about all tribes, so I can only speak about the dear grandfather who mentioned this to me, that in Native American dance, the men, you'll see them lifting their legs and jumping and you'll see the women dance a different. The younger girls will do some more bouncy, but in general, you'll see the women stay real close to the earth. Yes. So, maybe they just sit on the floor because they're closer to the earth.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start with a little bit of silence as we do, and prayer.
Are the lights okay?
Could be just a little bit lower. That one doesn't. This one does. No, that's good, I think. I think that's all right.
He's the first person I've ever seen in concert who's better than on this recording. Oh wow. Unbelievable. Let's join hands, please. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Amen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صدق الله العظيم. This is the Friday Eve prayer. As you know, I believe you know, that in the Muslim religion as well as in the Jewish religion, the day begins the night before, right, on the Eve. So it's already Friday. It is Friday Eve, isn't it? Tomorrow's Friday. This is Friday Eve. Like Christmas Eve is the night before, right? So that's how the prayers work. So this is the Friday Eve prayer. And for instance, then tomorrow you would read the Friday morning prayer, right? And then you would read the Saturday Eve prayer. What moves me whenever I read anything from the Sheikh al-Akbar's his own weird, his own prayers, is the degree of, in a way, freedom in speaking to the beloved. You'll hear it. You know, this was not composed as a book to be published, and you know, this is his, like his diary almost. You'll see. Let's start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the all-compassionate and most merciful. O my God, all the high fathers are your servants, and you are Lord of all absolutely. You unite the complementary contraries, for you are the majestic, the beautiful. There is no end to your sheer delight in your essence, as there is no end to your witnessing of yourself. You are too majestic and perfect for us to contemplate, and you are too sublime and beautiful for us to describe you. You are transcendent in your majesty, far beyond the distinguishing marks of contingencies, and your sublime beauty is sanctified from being assailed by inclinations towards it through passions. I ask of you, by the mystery with which you unite the complementary contraries, that you bring together for me all that is disunited of my being in such a union that I may contemplate and witness the oneness of your being. Invest me with the robe of your beauty, and crown me with the diadem of your majesty, so that the human souls may humble themselves before me, disdainful hearts be led to me, and the secrets of the most holy effusion be extended to me. Elevate my rank before you, so that everyone who elevates themselves and wields power is brought low and humbled before me. Lead me to you by my forelock, and grant me mastery of the forelock of every living thing endowed with spirit, whose forelock is in your hand. Grant me a tongue of veracity regarding the two realms of your creation and your command. Fill me with you, and preserve me upon your land and sea. Bring me forth from the city of gross nature, whose inhabitants are oppressors, and free me from the bondage of created things. Grant me from you an evident proof that bequeaths security, and do not grant power over me to any other than you. In my poverty towards you, make me rich beyond need of anything sought, and accompany me with your richness beyond need of anything desired. You are my goal and my glory. To you, the returning and the ultimate end. You comfort and mend the broken, and you shatter the tyrants. You take the fearful under your wing, and you put fear into the oppressors. Yours is the most sublime glory, the most complete revelation, and the most impenetrable veil. Glory be to you. There is no God but you. You are my reckoner and the best trustee. Such is the seizing of your Lord when he seizes the cities that do wrong. Surely his seizing is grievously painful. Then we took vengeance upon those who sinned, and it was ever incumbent upon us to help the believers. This last three lines were from the Quran directly. Such is the seizing of your Lord when he seizes the cities that do wrong. Surely his seizing is grievously painful. Then we took vengeance upon those who sinned, and it was ever incumbent upon us to help the believers. O God, O Creator of all that is created, O Vivifier of all that is dead, O you who gathers together all that is dispersed, and pours forth light upon the essences of all things. Yours is the kingdom infinitely vast. Yours the rank of most sublime honor. Lords are your slaves, monarchs your servants, and the wealthy are the poor towards you, for you are rich in yourself beyond need of any other than you. I ask of you by your name, with which you have created each thing, ordaining its destiny, and with which you bestow upon whomsoever you wish a garden and a raiment of silk, and the power of viceregency and a great kingdom. Take away my covetousness and perfect my imperfection. Grace me with the garments of your favor, and teach me of your names what is most appropriate for divine permission and dictation. Fill my interior with God-fearing and compassion, and my exterior with awe and grandeur, so that the hearts of the enemies be in dread of me, and the spirits of the friends find pleasure and ease with me. They fear their Lord above them, and they do what they are commanded. O my Lord, grant me the gift of the most perfect aptitude to receive your most holy effusion, that I may be your appointed regent in your lands, and by that keep your displeasure away from your servants. Indeed, you appoint as regent whomsoever you wish, and you have power over all things. You are the fully aware, the seer. May the blessing of God be upon our Master Muhammad and upon his family and companions. Salutations to them all. He is my reckoner and the best trustee. Allah. At our last gathering with Tony, we started the pages again, and we can do that again tonight if you like, or we can leave start from where we left off last time, or say what you'd like.
I've been carrying a question. The last time you guys met, I was in St. Louis, and I actually read through the last of it. I tried to kind of match it up the same time because I was in my hotel room, so I tried to be there in spirit. But as I read the rest of it, there was a section about, I have to fully remember how it was worded or which section it was, but about how Muhammad always being, it was related to how all the prophets have always existed and always been because they're all God, but that Muhammad was superior to all of them because of the divine revelation. Mm-hmm. And I understand that concept, but I guess what got me hung up is thinking that, but if it's all one and it's all God, wouldn't that still make Jesus would have always been because he's part of God, and wouldn't it, all the other prophets have been always in existence as prophets or in that consciousness from the beginning as having always been God. But it clearly made a distinction of Muhammad being of a higher rank.
I'm ignorant, and I can only repeat what I myself have studied and read. We refer to, and I think the distinction in my own understanding is that if we speak about, almost as one speaks of Jesus, peace be upon him, the argument in the church, human incarnation, divine, was he human, was he? Right. And then someone would say, well, are we talking about the historical Jesus, or it's like, are we talking about the historical Muhammad, or are we talking,
Right.
Yes, all right, so chronologically, yes, we can cite the lifetime of the man named Muhammad who, received this revelation and spoke in the language of Arabic to the Arabic peoples. Not to be confused with the Nuri Muhammad. And it isn't that the Prophet Muhammad pre-existed all the others, but that the light, that's referred to as the Nur-e Muhammad, existed in pre-eternity, right, outside of time. I actually asked a similar question to Pirzia. We were driving somewhere, and because I had a question about the Nur-e Muhammad, and he said, well, very just sort of nonchalantly, he said, well, it's the spirit of guidance.
Right.
The Nur-e Muhammad is the spirit of guidance, what we call in our order the spirit of guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the Nur-e Muhammad, or the spirit of guidance, the guiding spirit of all prophets, is with them all the time, right? Including the last prophet. Right. So it's not that the person we name Muhammad was prior to or I don't even want to say the word superior.
Yeah.
It isn't like that, in my understanding.
Okay, that makes it a lot clearer.
I was reading in the Belufasus, the chapter of Jesus, because Tony said last time we were together, Tony said that was one of the most beautiful chapters. I've been reading that, and I'm about halfway through. But my impression is also that when he talks about this Jesus and what his function was, it's like it's a different function than Muhammad, but it also is not. It's not only the person Jesus, but it's the spirit that was they call it, like, Jesus is the Word, so they say the Word was with God. So if that spirit was from all eternity, just like Muhammad was, all of the prophets had certain functions, and certain. So they really are different. They're different. They're not the same. Especially in Jesus' case, because he was he had a human mother, but he had the spirit. The spirit was breathed into him into Mary by Gabriel, and so he had his physical nature also had that spirit created part of it, which made him distinct from all the other prophets, because all the other prophets were completely naturally human, and Jesus was different because it was spirit. It was a spirit infused.
Well, he's referred to as Ruh Allah.
What?
Ruh Allah. And when speaking about Jesus, peace be upon him, he's referred to as the breath of God.
The breath, yeah.
The Ruh Allah. Yeah.
Would the light of Christ be similar to the Nur-e Muhammad in that respect? Would it be?
I don't want to answer from my head.
Yeah, I understand. Sure. You shook your head. Yeah.
Well, to me, the same answer that Pirzia gave about Muhammad would be what he would give about Jesus.
It's the same.
It's the spirit of guidance. It's our invocation is exactly
Yeah. Precisely.
united with all the illuminated souls
yes.
who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's really clear.
Yeah.
Well, should we just start from the beginning?
Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Know that there are two kinds of gifts and favors which manifest in the world at the hands of the servants or by other means. Some of them are gifts of the essence and some are gifts of the names, and these are distinguished by people of taste. Likewise, some of them are given due to a request for something specific, and some come from a request which is non-specific, while some are given without any request being made, whether they be gifts of the essence or the names. A specific request is like when someone asks, "O Lord, give me such and such," specifying something without thinking of anything else. And a non-specific request is like when someone asks, "O Lord, give me what you know is good for me," without being specific. For every part of my being, be it subtle or dense, the cause of request and the giving of gifts. And I'm just reading. If anyone wants to pause and read the footnote, just chime in, or we'll come back to it. The cause of request and the giving of gifts. Those who ask are also of two kinds. One is prompted to ask out of natural impatience, for humankind is created hasty, while the other is impelled to ask because he knows that there are certain affairs with God where it is already known that they cannot be obtained except after a request. And he says, perhaps what we ask of him, glory be to him, is of this kind. So his request is a precautionary measure in case this is a possibility. He does not know what is in God's knowledge, nor does he know what is bestowed by his own aptitude for receiving, for it is one of the most abstruse sciences to comprehend in every single moment an individual's aptitude at that moment. If his aptitude had not inclined him to ask, he would not have asked. The highest degree of knowledge of the people of presence who are not knowing in this manner is that they know it at the very moment that they are, for they know it in the very moment that they are in. For by their presence with God, they know what the real gives them at that moment, and the fact that they do not receive it except through aptitude. They, again, are of two kinds. One kind knows their aptitude from what they receive, and another kind knows what they receive from their aptitude. The latter are the more complete in what there can be of knowledge of aptitude in this group. Please excuse me that I'm not reading well tonight. Among this kind, there are those who neither out of impatience nor because it is a possibility that they will receive, rather they ask in compliance with God's order, which says, quote, "Call on me and I shall answer you." And this is the pure servant. For this requester, there is no spiritual aspiration attached to what he requests, be it specific or non-specific. Rather, his spiritual will is entirely in compliance and accord with the orders of his master. When his state requires a request, he asks for servanthood, and when it requires handing over to God and silence, he falls silent. Thus, Job and others were afflicted with trial, but they did not request that God remove what he had afflicted them with. Only at another time did the state require them to ask for the affliction to be lifted, and then God removed it from them. The accelerating or delaying of receiving of receiving what is asked for depends upon the measure appointed for it with God. If a request is made at just the right moment for it, the response is swift. But if its time is not yet due, either in this world or until the next, the response is delayed accordingly. That is to say, the receiving of what has been requested and the immediate response from God, which is, I'm here for you. So understand this.
It was not the immediate response.
Pardon me?
You said and it's not. It was not. That is to say, the receiving of what has been requested, not the immediate response from God, which is, I am here for you.
The I am here for you is the immediate part. It's
Right.
rather than the specific.
So that's like people who say just because they didn't get what they asked for, the prayer wasn't answered. But it's, you know, the answer is, I'm here for you.
My glasses aren't.
Oh, you were looking for your glasses?
Yeah.
Did you lose your glasses?
Do you have a pair on the table?
No, it's okay.
I
I can.
I have many pairs.
The light is, yeah, but I have an astigmatism, so might not help that much. But I will check your car before I make sure I can put them in there. I'm gonna take them off now.
So what do you think would be a condition or a quality that would I'd say necessarily have to be present in our well, I was going to say state, when I mean station, right? Makam. Like, what makes one person be the patient requester and another one be hasty and impatient? You know, what would need to be present? What do you think?
A kind of ripeness. I think it's something, in my experience, I've learned to be more patient. You know, and that truth of that statement that something asked for, if it wasn't received then, but it would be received in due time. You know, if you actually have experiences of that, then for me it develops a sense of being able to trust the unfolding. This is something I'm developing, this capacity.
Then you would, or one would, as they say, fall back on your experience. That's sort of what colors all of our reactions to things anyway. Is, you know, it like they say, it could be on the unconscious, but it was something that impressed you, me, and it's in there. When we react unconsciously to something that was already colored by a previous, we didn't meet the new situation with freshness, but rather brought forth the experience that we'd already had. So when we have experiences of receiving in due time, I think that's the thing, is when its time is due, then it comes. And when we have experiences, oh yeah, that's happened before, I asked, and if I had gotten it just then, it wouldn't have fulfilled its purpose in the scheme of things.
And then something comes to mind with me, and that is somewhere in either this one or one of the other ones I was reading. It was about if you stay away from your personal desires. If you stay away from your personal desires and relax into more of an acceptance mode, without, then then it comes more naturally with the unfoldment. But I think what happens is if instead of looking to the self-disclosure that's happening all the time, instead of looking to that, we're looking at ourselves and we're becoming personal, and then and when we focus on our personal desires, a lot of times that puts us out of rhythm, so that instead of waiting for it to happen at its correct time, we're kind of like focusing on a desire that we want right now, and that's what kind of makes it impatient. Instead of just because they said that we receive according to our aptitude, and that in each person, that's that part in here where it goes into destiny, and it says the knowledge of destiny, and it's because what is going to be revealed to any individual is determined by his own bestowed essence. So you're only ever going to get what your essence is. In other words, your capacity, the essence. There's a capacity within your essence, and you're not going to get more than that, but you're not going to get less than that. You're going to get your capacity. So, but it's not decided upon what you want. It's decided about what your essence requires. It's already established, so to speak. Not to say that, everybody, then there's that part where if you are aware of, you get the self-disclosures, you get these epiphanies, but if you're paying attention to something else and you don't pay attention, you're not aware of the epiphany, then what is it? So it's like if you focus too much on yourself, you're going to miss a lot, I guess is what I'm saying. And also, you're going to be out of sync. You're going to be out of rhythm, That's what takes us out of rhythm, I think.
But everyone is focusing on themselves.
Correct, but
whether you're asking for a non-specific or for a specific, it's still the requestor. The requester is still the person, right? So
right, yes, but I think it's kind of a distinction between what I'm trying to say is a distinction between just kind of like our animal desires, or what would be more closer to that than just being having being functioning in a higher state. So if you're in a real low state, that's as much as you're going to get. In the higher state you're in, not about Hall, but like Maqams, then that's all you're going to get. So in other words, if you're focusing on your, let's just say the typical one would be carnal desires, eating, procreation, all the carnal pleasures. So if you're too much interested in all of that, then you're going to be functioning on that level, and you're going to be receiving what is available on that level. If you're if you're trying to lift up to a higher level of understanding, then you're going to get what's available on that level. So you're going to only be able to get what's available to you on whatever level you're functioning on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You had said ripe, and as soon as you said ripe, it made me think of the word pain. Because for my own experience, I think what's made me so patient, because I have extreme patience sometimes, I'm really surprised with myself, and I think the more pain that, like, every real deep unfolding that's happened in me has come from an experience of receiving gifts from a situation of just pure despair and pain. And it was a moment where I let go of my specific requests and just said, I'm the instrument and I just want to be played and used, and here I am, restring me. And when that happens and I do that in a real way, then out of all that pain and all that suffering comes the answer, the gift. And it may not be in the way that I expected it, but it's there and it's beautiful, and it just makes me go, wow, this is so real. And then I just get hungry and want more, and then I keep going, not going for more pain, but for more of that experience. So to me, I think going, Murshida talks so much about pain, and how that you can't really know love without the pain. And I think to truly be patient is to truly be loving, and to truly experience love in a patient manner, which I think pain really cracks the heart open and gives that opening for that to come in. Which is kind of like what you said too with ripe. That if you're only ripe enough to want to eat it, sizzler, and pick up girls at the bar.
Yeah, you're going to be hungry.
I'm just joking. As far as you're going to get the gifts, you're going to get a steak and do your date.
But I liked a couple of those points. It's almost as if one could, in quotes, read a person's level by what they desire. And our beloved teacher, Pir Vilayat, he often used to say, which is no big thing, right? But he would say it, there's no accounting for taste. It's like, some like this and some like that, and you go, there's no accounting for taste.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, so my first question is, when he says request, does that, like you're saying, like, does that count for I want a car, I want a cheeseburger, or is it only, when he says that, it's only like I want a spiritual thing, like a knowledge of God? Or is it any request from God, any desire, any of that?
I understand it in the general sense, any request, and then there's the the kind of the fine tuning of it that some of us are looking at. But I believe that this is really addressed to those who are at a different echelon.
So my other question is, like, I don't know if this sounds silly, but like, okay, so if I like asked for, like, food or like a car, or, I mean, anything, like, and then I received that, like, I can't really like attribute that to like, oh well, it's because I'm so apt, I have so much aptitude, because like, I mean, what if there are people that like are way more spiritually advanced than I am, but like they live in like civil war or something, and like they're just these perfect enlightened beings, but they're drafted at 12 and they die. Like, how could I say that, like, well, all gifts are because of aptitude, when like clearly some people wind up with like riches and wealth and like power, and they're not very spiritual or even nice people, and then other people could be very nice and receive nothing that we would consider a gift, like not even food, and then they starve at like 10 or something.
Yeah, great question. Great, because I've struggled with that one for sure. Yeah.
And I would say what he's writing about is more spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
But in relation to the disparity in physical access to what we need to live, a lot of those conditions are the conditions that are created by human beings, and by our ignorance and our
greed,
not following the spirit of guidance, and Hazrat Inayat Khan talks about that a lot of the misery that humans experience is self-created. Not like created by the individual person, but created by the conditions that human beings create. And my sense of people like Hazrat Inayat Khan and Ibn Arabi is that to connect human beings with the spirit of guidance, not just for the spiritual unfoldment, but that we might together create conditions that are more just.
Because like that prayer that says that you come to on earth and speak the word as a dove, you put whenever dharma decays, you speak the word that's put into your mouth as a dove. I can't remember the rest of it unless I'm saying it, but you know what I mean, that prayer. And it's kind of like the messengers were sent at times when we were, the human race was really desperately misguided, and we're acting really wrong, and it was just going so astray from what the purpose is. And then the messenger sent to give a correction, how to correct that. So like Hazrat Inayat Khan, he was sent to the United States, and before that, or to the West, to England, Europe, and the United States. But before that, the Sufis hadn't really come to the West, and that was like 1,500 years before they were all over the place, practically, 1,000
Let's look
years.
Let's look at. I'm going to come back to your question. Everything comes from one place, from the source, the only source. So let's say that a request was on the most basic level, what we're calling the base level. I want a car, as you said. I need a car. I need a job. And it comes. So do we then receive that answer to the prayer and say, it's because of my own merit? I deserved it, and so now I have this shiny new car, and now I have this wonderful job, or now I have, rather than in that moment to recognize the name, right? The gifts come, and they may come through the names. So let's say that you were in a condition of hunger, and just needed to eat, needed more food, a supply of regular sustenance on that level. And then when it comes, to remember the provider, to remember the nourisher, to remember the alleviator of pain, for instance, and to receive whatever the gift is, and to give thanks for it, right? Rather than saying, "Well, I really deserved it. I had to come in," right? That's you can see that the person's already making a shift, because how do we get to this high, elevated spirit? Well, you have to get there. We have to get there, and some of these things, I'm asking really dumb questions maybe, but some of these things are exactly what we face on the spiritual path, and then you find a little bit more opening and more clarity, so that, as Razak was quoting from the prayer about the messengers that are sent, it's because, as Pure Murshid says, the need of humanity, right? It wasn't one person's need, but the need of humanity and the suffering and pain that finally caused them to cry out is what brought the response. So that was the collective human prayer, we say, that sent the beseeching, the praying, and then the messenger came. Right? as a dove from above when Dharma decays, and spoke the message that the messenger put into the messenger's mouth. Right? There's that phrase, that phase.
Fills the crescent moon.
As the light fills the crescent moon. So the receptivity is another aspect. It's almost when we lose hope or just surrender or just relinquish whatever my personal desire is. Okay, I give up.
Thy will be done.
You know, make an accommodation for that. Anyway.
But the other thing too is that it's not. I mean, we are physical. So like praying for physical things. Isn't it that matter is like the grossest form of spirit? The spirit is the highest form of matter. They're not really different. So it's all just one thing. It's all one continuum. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with praying for matter. You know, for if you need money or cars or anything. I mean, the provider provides everything. Food provides the air we breathe, the water. I mean. Without the provider, without the continuous, creation every moment, a new creation. That's everything. So we're given everything. So
And we haven't condemned it though.
Yeah, no.
There was no judgment around that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at whatever level that one requests, it will manifest. And if you recognize the name by which that gift is offered, then we had this discussion. I was talking to Razak about you give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, like that stuff. But then to inappropriately give credit to Caesar what is not Caesar's. I think that's what the mystic is working out, is ridding oneself of the Caesar, of our own Caesar, the inner Caesar that says, oh, I'm this or I'm that, or I made this decision, or and yes, through you, how else will it manifest, right? But through you, and that it was the fashioner, that it was the evolver, that in that moment, the term that Razak used, the self-revelation of God. It is God that reveals God's self in that moment. If the eyes of the heart perceive, then you know who or what just appeared before you. Often we miss that. Any other comments before we... Fatima, would you mind reading a little bit? Oh, you couldn't read your
Well, no,
glasses.
I can, if I do it just right, I'll be able to read it. Let's see, where did we go?
I think it was they again of two kinds. One kind knows they're after two.
What page? Oh, it doesn't have numbers.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Third page in, third paragraph.
Third paragraph.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
They again are of two kinds. One kind knows their aptitude from what they receive, and another kind knows what they receive from their aptitude. The latter are the more complete in what there can be of knowledge of aptitude in this group. Among this kind there are those who ask neither out of impatience nor because it is a possibility that they will receive, rather they ask in compliance with God's order, call on me and I shall answer you. And this is the pure servant. For this requester there is no spiritual aspiration attached to what he requests, be it specific or non-specific. Rather, his spiritual will is entirely in compliance and accord with the order of his master. When his state requires request, he asks for servanthood, and when it requires handing over to God and silence, he falls silent. Thus Job and others were afflicted with trial, but they did not request that God remove What he had afflicted them with, only at another time did the state require them to ask for the affliction to be lifted, and then God removed it from them. The accelerating or delaying of receiving what is asked for depends upon the measure appointed for it with God. If a request is made at just the right moment for it, the response is swift. But if its time is not yet due, either in this world or until the next, the response is delayed accordingly. That is to say, the receiving of what has been requested, not the immediate response from God, which is, I am here for you. So understand this. As for the second type of gift, regarding which we said some are given without any request being made, I mean a request which is articulated. For in actuality, there must always be a request, whether it is expressed in words or through state or aptitude. Likewise, unconditional praise is not true except in words. In terms of inner meaning, it must be conditioned by one's inner state. That which prompts you to praise God is that which is conditioned for you by a divine name, denoting his action or his transcendence. For the aptitude to receive is not something the servant is directly aware of, but he can be aware of the state, for he knows what induces him to act, which is the state he is in. The aptitude is a more hidden requesting. Do you want me to continue?
Is that kind of a definition of name denoting his action or his transcendence? Do the names denote action or transcendence? I mean, is that a definition of? Is that kind of a definition of a name?
It may well be. I'm more familiar with the names being referred to as names of beauty or names of majesty. But I'm not denying what you're guessing. It could be correct, but I'm not aware of it.
I noticed in this last line, for the aptitude to receive is not something the servant is directly aware of. And that kind of led me back to the first page. There was a footnote about the servant. Alabad, plural of abd, servants, which may be interpreted in two ways, either as humanity in general, humankind, or as opposed to other creatures, as humankind as opposed to other creatures, or as the servants of God who know God, the truly human beings as opposed to those who do not know. That kind of thing back into what maybe a little bit of what we were talking about earlier with your question. There's probably people that ask and make requests that are in no mental state of being in service to God or requesting from God or things like that, but still put those requests out there. I want a car, I want a better job, I want, a higher rank in life or whatever it is that they're after. But I thought that was interesting because it did kind of clarify. My thought was what is meant by servants when I first read it, and then it's brought up a couple times. I thought that was a good footnote.
And the other thing is that something I came across recently is that servant is a synonym for human, because all humans are servants, because that's our station. We're completely indigent. We're completely dependent on God at all times, and so we're all indigent. We're all servants.
Knowledge of destiny. What prevents such people from asking is only that they know that God has eternally decreed for them. Thus they have made ready their place to receive whatever He wishes, and they have stayed away from their own selves and their personal inclinations. Amongst these there is one who knows that God's knowledge of him in all his states is how he was in the state of establishment of his essential reality. Prior to his physical existence, he knows that God gives him nothing except that knowledge of him which his own essence bestows. And that is how he was in the state of his establishment. And so he knows from where God's knowing of him comes. There is no category of the people of God that is more elevated in knowing through unveiling than this, for these people comprehend the mystery of destiny. There are two kinds of those who know this mystery in a general way and those who know it in detail. And the one who knows it in detail is more elevated and complete than the one who only knows generally. For he knows what is in God's knowledge concerning him, either by God himself informing him what knowledge of him is bestowed by his essence, or by there being revealed to him his own established essential reality and the endless succession of states that flows over it. And this is higher, for in his knowledge of himself, he is in the same place as God's knowledge of him, since the taking of knowledge is from a single source. However, from the side of the servant, it is a special providential favor from God which is predestined to him, arising from the sum of the states of his essence, which the possessor of this unveiling recognizes when God discloses it to him, whatever the states of his essence may be. For it is not within the power of a creature when God discloses the states of his established essence, according to which the form of existence occurs, that in this state he should have revealed to him the disclosing of the real to these established essences in the state of their non-existence, for they are essential relations without form. According to this, we may say that it is a divine providential blessing which is destined to this servant through that parity in the imparting of knowledge.
That's interesting, because parity, that means equal, right?
Right.
So it's like what is revealed is according to your own self. In other words, when you see that, it's like the mirror. You can only see yourself in the mirror. You can't see, you don't see somebody else in the mirror. You don't see an outline. So it's the same thing. It's like when you look at God, what is revealed to you of God is what is essentially yourself. It's God's self. It's yourself, but it's actually God's self, to the extent that you're capable, or your capacity is what you receive.
Exactly. Which is why, whoso knoweth himself knoweth his Maker, knoweth their Lord.
It really struck me when you were reading the part where there are two kinds who know this mystery in the general way and those who know in detail. And the one who knows in detail is more elevated and complete than the one who knows generally. For he knows what is in God's knowledge concerning him, either by God himself informing him what knowledge of him is bestowed by his essence, or by there being revealed to him his own established essential reality. There's so many nuggets in that little sentence.
Yeah.
Because for he knows what is in God's knowledge concerning him. So it's almost having a knowing of where, you fit into the whole essence of it, and then God himself informing him what knowledge of him is bestowed by his essence. So it's that whole, it just keeps circling back to the one, back to that source, and it just...
And this, like this footnote number 12, it says, when they're talking about that, it says this passage relates when God's knowledge, the person's knowledge of himself is the same as God's knowledge. The passage relates to Ibn Arabi's description of his own self-vision as reported to his stepson, Suruddin al-Kanawi. I turned toward God with total concentration and in a state of contemplation and vigilance, which was perfect. God then showed me all of my future states, both internal and external, right through the end of my days. I then went to see with the insight and certainty as my possession. What has happened, and what will come to be will come to be, without defect or deficiency.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
So in the following footnote, Sikander is really a reference to what you were saying, right? The parity that you asked about. The parity or equality may refer to the parity between servant and reality. There's imparting of knowledge from both sides, which benefit each equally, right? The eyes through which I see God are the eyes through which God sees God's self, right? Because there's only one seer, basir, right? There's only one knower, ya alim. There's only that one. That's how it works. That's the paradox and the convolution, if you like, of mysticism. Mm-hmm. It's not, and it is at the same time. You know, it is and it isn't.
I like in that previous footnote where he says, I then went to see with insight and certainty as my possession. Because I think one of our first lessons that I had with you is, what can you, the whole Sufi saying that what can you lose in a shipwreck? You can lose everything, even your life. But going out to sea with that knowledge, if you want to stick with that same kind of reference, with insight and certainty as my possession. So you no longer possess that desire or that idea of what was the thing that you were after or desiring. It now becomes you possess that insight and certainty that whatever is needed is there. whether it's whatever it is, it'll come without defect or deficiency. That, I think there's such a key insight in that, because we just don't live our lives normally with that kind of faith.
Faith, I was just going to say.
Yeah.
And but the other thing about it is too, let's just say, not even Arabi, but let's just say this would apply to everybody, that although we don't know it, we're not privileged to what he was given, this gift he was given, but let's just say that even though we don't know it, we're not aware of it, that our life will come to pass without defect or deficiency too. So it wasn't only just because he knew that what would occur, that it would occur, but the fact that even if he didn't know about it, if he was totally asleep and unaware of anything, and his life would still come to pass without defect, or a person's life would still come to pass without defect or deficiency. But that doesn't mean they'll be aware of it, because what if they were asleep through the whole thing? They didn't even know it happened. But yet it occurred without defect or deficiency. And the people who are aware of it and who want to pay attention could get as much knowledge as they want. But if you don't want to pay attention, that still doesn't mean your life isn't going to turn out perfectly the way it was supposed to. It just means that you won't be aware of it. You'll just be ignorant of it. So you'll still be in the same place you started when you after this life. Well, maybe not the same place you started. I don't think anybody could be the same place they started after going through being human.
This is where we're called to remember that there's only one being.
Yeah.
It's I'd like to, I don't know if it'll be helpful, but the servant, think of it, although I guess in the U.S. particularly, but other countries as well that have had slavery, and which one hasn't, right? We don't really cotton to using the term slave, but the slave of God. I've never been a slave in the actual real sense of the word, right? Where someone else dictated when I get up and what I do and what I eat and who I'm with, and everything is controlled by the master. Everything is controlled. I have no free will. I don't have any arena where I act independently of what my master asks me, allows me, permits. Think that's what we're talking about. We can say servant, like, oh yeah, I serve you, and I'm completely surrendered. Whatever you tell me to do, or command of me to do, I am bound by your command. Right? The story of the king and his servants. He had. He assembled all his servants, like 10 servants or something, and he gave each of them this exquisite crystal goblet, finely etched and carved in magnificent crystal goblets. He gave each of them one, and he says, "Now take this, beautiful crystal goblet, and throw it on the floor." And one after another, they smashed the goblets. These beautiful, smashed the goblets until the last one smashed his down too. They all did the same thing. Did what the king commanded. And he says, "Why did you do that?" "Because you commanded it." "Why did you?" "Because you commanded it." Why did you? Because you commanded it. And why did you do it? Because you commanded it. And why did you do that? I'm sorry. I apologize for breaking the goblet. Was the last one. You had a different relationship. In a certain sense, you know what? It's like, yes, I was commanded to do it, and I did it, and I take responsibility for what happened, and I take responsibility. And you'll often come across writings that will begin, and him, I set forth, inshallah, the intention to provide this, to elucidate that, and any error, any shortcoming, it's my fault. The error is mine. You take it. So this, the idea or the concept of servanthood, maybe open that out a little bit more, so that we then see that the messengers, the prophets, the servants of God, in that sense, and it's so clear in the prayer, they had no voice of their own, but rather came with that which had been put into them to deliver as it was given. And many examples in the Islamic tradition point to that delivering of the message, that, and I use this metaphor, and then I found somebody else use something very similar to that. I say, supposing that I have been given the task, the mission, to go from here to, we're in Burbank, from here to Anaheim. Take this message, just as I've given it to you, and take it to those people in Anaheim. This is for them, right? And it has 33 drops of wisdom in this heaping tablespoon, and I'm going over to Anaheim, being really careful not to spill because it's brimming with this wisdom. And what if one little drop happened to escape? There were 33 initially, and I have to deliver 33, but now there's only 32. Well, I'll put a drop. You can't, right? The messenger delivers it. They have nothing to do with the message, meaning they've not added to it or anything, but have given it as it was given. If I tell you to go tell somebody such and such, don't tell them what you think I want you to tell them.
Right.
Tell them what I told you to tell them. Yeah, it's like that.
And even Arabi, in his biographical works, says that he really, this was not something that he made up. These were all things that this was revelation. And I think he said Jesus was his first teacher, and then Muhammad, I guess Muhammad became his teacher after that and dictated word for word a lot of this stuff in order to explain the Quran. And sometimes Ibn Arabi said he would even hear it, and he would have to write so fast to try to not miss a word, and he didn't even know what he was writing until afterwards, and then he would read it afterwards, and he would understand what it was. Because think about it. How could somebody write so many books? There's already like 400 books of his extant still that are, and a lot more that have been lost. Unbelievable, incredible.
There's one more paragraph here before we get to the next topic. Please excuse me, I'm going to keep this moving.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you have to stop me. I don't look louder mouth and I run at the mouth, so please stop me. You'd be doing me a favor most of the time.
Thus God the Exalted says, "We shall try you until we know," which is an expression precisely establishing the true spiritual meaning, unlike what is supposed by those who are not of the way. The furthest that the transcendentalist can reach is to say that this apparent temporality is divine knowledge. In divine knowledge is due to dependence of God upon the creature. This is the that the theologian can maintain through his intellect on this question. If only he had not affirmed knowledge as additional to the essence and described dependence for it, not for the essence. By that he distinguishes himself from the true verifier among the people of God, one who possesses real insight and experience. Al-Kashf, Wajud.
Mark, would you mind reading a little bit?
Well, thank you for asking. I'll try.
There's no compulsion. If you'd like to, that would be nice to have another reader. Gifts of the Essence.
Gifts of the Essence. Self-disclosure in the mirror. Now, returning to the subject of divine gifts, let us say that the gifts are either from the essence or from the names. The benefactions, gifts, and favors that come from the essence only ever happen through a divine self-revelation. Taj Ali. And the self-disclosure from the essence only ever comes about in the form of aptitude, of the one revealed to. Nothing else ever occurs. Thus, the one revealed to never sees anything in the mirror of the real other than his own form. He does not see the real. Nor is it possible that he should see him, all the while knowing that he only sees his own form in him. This is like the example of a physical mirror. When you see the form in it, you don't see it, the mirror, at the same time, despite your knowing that you cannot see the forms of your own form except in it, the mirror. God makes this clear as a symbol, which he provides for his essential self-revelation, so that the one revealed to may know that he did not see him. There is no symbol or likeness closer to vision and self-revelation than this. Try yourself to see the form in the mirror at the same time as seeing the body of the mirror. You will never see them both together. This is so much the case that some of those who have had this perception in the form of mirrors came to the conclusion that the form which is seen lies in between the eye of the viewer and the mirror. That is the most knowledge they have been capable of attaining. However, the matter is, as we have said, we hold to that, and we have explained this in the Futat al-Makkiyah. If you have tasted this, you have experienced the utmost, above which there is nothing more regarding the creature. So do not aspire or wear yourself out in trying to progress beyond this point, for there is nothing there at all. And after it, there is nothing but pure non-existence. He is your mirror in which you see yourself, while you are his mirror in which he sees his names and manifests their properties. And they are no other than himself. So the matter becomes confused and ambiguous.
So it is 9:30.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. I'm just reminded of the prayer of St. Francis. And if we just take a look at the things that he asked for. You know, he was praying, he was asking, he was requesting. I want to be able to sow peace where there's anger and antagonism, conflict, you know. I want to be able to comfort where there's suffering. So a person that, let's say, is altruistic, community-minded, however you want to put it, who's looking to be of service, to help, to elevate somehow, they still have their personal needs. We all, as long as you have a body, it's going to have needs. Right? It's like Imam Bilal reminding us all the time, that first level of the nafs, it's always going to be with us. But the second level of nafs, where we begin to turn the outward-looking vision, you know, oh, that person did it to me, you know, it was because of that, oh, you know, all of that, it gets drawn back, and we do look in that mirror that reflects ourselves back to us, and we can see, perhaps see in that mirror, as we now are willing to look at our actions, or, you know, how we've treated people, how we've behaved, and if what we don't like, if we don't like what we see about ourselves, about our actions, our thoughts, our deeds, our judgments, or whatever, if we don't like that, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't fit comfortably and pleasingly inside. So if it doesn't make me feel good, I know I'm not making other people feel good, but I didn't care before. The fact that it didn't make them feel good, that it bothered, you know, hey, that's how it goes. But something in me awakened, and I begin to feel the displeasure of the other, and that's what's making me not feel good. The pain that I'm causing to another, it actually is real, is the pain I'm causing that to myself. And I was all along, except I didn't feel, you know. But now it's pricking me. So that's what Sufis refer to as that second level, or the next level of nafs, where we begin to auto-criticize, right? It's now possible to change our own behavior because it hurts me, it bothers me, right? So it even at that first level of the second stage of that nafs, it's so proximate to the previous one that it's still self-oriented, right? I want to alleviate the pain I'm causing myself. It's like, but you know, it of course reflects onto everything else. So it's by stages, and the farther we get away from that demanding, commanding nafsi amara, the first level, move into the next level where you take account of yourself and your actions. You begin to make modifications and changes, etc. And then you come to another level of nafs, which is now more pleasing and more pleased because of its taking off, divesting of those layers of illusion that keep us thinking that we are separate entities and not indigent. We don't think of ourselves that way. So these steps, really that's all they are, one by one, and they proceed exactly one after another, and then you look back and you see that you've made some movement. Let's not say progress, but that you've made some movements. It's not how it was before. You see differently. Things have changed. There's now some accommodation that was opened up by that pain, you know, the suffering, etc., that cracked something open so that now more light can come. And this, inshallah, this unbecoming, you know, allows for, we use the word capacity, but let's say capacity in the terms of akasha. It's like if I'm really an unevolved human creature, then if I'm like really dense and really gross, by gross, you know what I mean, is the density of my mind and all of that does not allow for much light. But inherent in that is the promise of more, because they function as pairs. You know, light and dark function as pairs. The sun and the moon function as pairs. Then making that space what begins to shine through more clearly are the actions, the activity of the name, whatever name that is, that now has some scope for expression where it didn't before. Not that you didn't have it or that I didn't have it, right? My way of thinking of it is Allah saying, I was a hidden treasure, you know, well, conjure up treasure, you know, as much treasure as you can think of. And it seems to me that this hidden treasure, which is the only reality and the only being, therefore has endowed all of the creation, because it is the creator and there's nothing apart from that, then everything is endowed with the possibility, let's say the potential, of manifesting on this level, all the way to this level, the divinity. And that's, from my understanding, the essence of mysticism, of the mystical path, and certainly of tasawwuf, of Sufism. Very plainly, very clearly, that's what this is about. And I keep, in fact, I can see him sitting over here. I'm not saying I'm seeing, you know what I mean? It's like he sat there so many times that I know where he's sitting. Abdul Hamid would sit there, and you know, Abdul Hamid is like, oh, he's sitting right there. He'd say, this is not about how to save humanity or how to do. This is about you. The story is only about you. Who else is there? What else is there? You know, okay, I get long-winded too. Thank you.
But you have something to say. That's different. That's different.
Anyway, I'd like to, with a moment of silence before I say we say our hatum and the closing salutations, to please send Shafi, Kafi, and healing energy and prayers for our beloved Tony. Who is perfect and in harmony and balance and radiant good health. Khatum, the closing prayer. Would you like the sheet, the prayer sheet?
No, I haven't.
No, I mean, would you like one?
I think
Is it this one? So this one or a different?
Yes. Khatum. O thou, who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide us. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be with you. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be with you. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah wa barakatullah. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah wa barakatullah. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, we'll get together again in 2 weeks. And
we'll see how Tony's doing.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll listen to us
workshops
read.
in that time frame?
yeah, I've got a conference in Amherst. When did I leave? The 20th, Monday the 20th. It starts the 22nd, and the 23rd, half a day, and then I fly to Minneapolis and do the weekend. I'll be back on Monday the 27th, inshallah. So,
anyone who's in town on the afternoon of the 26th, the Eco Village is having an open house from 3 to 6.
Who is?
The Eco Village.
And what day?
On Sunday, April 26th,
Okay.
to celebrate Earth Day.
Oh, cool. I'll try to remember that. I came one time, but it's really fun. Excuse me.
Ameen.
Looks like my glasses are somewhere.